Well, hello again everybody, and welcome to an impromptu episode of All the Gear, No Idea. I want to start today by thanking everybody that was good enough to join me on Saturday for my live stream where we were having a look at this Bosch PB90. Now unfortunately that live stream didn't go to plan in that we had lots of technical problems, and unfortunately the live stream kept dropping out, and right at a critical moment, just as we had the radio reassembled and we actually powered it up, my internet connection just permanently failed, and I think I left everybody hanging in the lurch wondering whether this radio would actually work or not after we did some repairs to it. Well, I can in fact put you out of your misery and say yes, it does work. Here we are. So at the moment we've got the radio set to medium wave, so I'll just turn that up.
To work, no hassle. Just search Juice and Bundles.
At Morrison's, we're making hundreds of new packs.
Hey, didn't we? Medium done for the hards, one stop. Not the case. No, rears are good. Just the left front. Rears are good, it's the left front. The left front works hard here. Long. We all know a bet can go either way. It's part of the game. But where real music matters. Absolute Radio.
So that's a medium wave band, as you can hear. That's quite lively. Let's just put it onto long wave. And it's a little bit less sensitive, but hopefully we can pick up a few stations.
The spinners bowling, I'm sure we will see them. I'll just rotate three seamers, even though it's helpful conditions. Three seamers for the best part.
So there we've got the cricket on Radio 4.
No, Ashwin against the left-handers, it might be
And actually, on cue, the radio's actually gone silent. So I wanted to say that this radio is working. Well, it works for a while, and then all of a sudden it just goes quiet, and it just did it then. Now in yesterday's live stream I did say that it was important that when you revive one of these radios after its slumber for maybe 50 years or more, that you can of course just go ahead and change out some capacitors. You switch the radio on and everything is good, and then you think okay, that's great, you package it up and you send it on to its new owner. The problem is of course that quite often when you actually power a radio up for the first time it will actually work okay, but then it will die sometime later, maybe a few hours or a few days later when it's been put in constant use. So really whenever you're working on valve radios it is important to kind of do some soak checking. You can't assume that the radio will immediately work and will keep working. So in the case of this radio, it did work when it was powered up, and I was actually listening to it for 2 or 3 hours in my workshop. It was all going fine, and then all of a sudden it did just what it has done now. It actually went silent. I'm just going to go back onto medium wave because medium wave is a more lively band than long wave. But as you can see, the radio is completely dead. Now I do have a little trick to restoring this radio to operation, so just let me show you what that trick is. I'm just going to disconnect the HT. I'm going to put it back again. And did you hear that? It actually came back.
I really like him. Strong, you know, he's good in the air. I really like him. Harry Maguire's not fit, he ain't played. So
Shall we do our... Come, let's do it then, let's write it down.
And everything's working again.
Jeez, you are...
Can you hear it? It's going quiet though. And it's now died again. Let's interrupt the power again.
Alright then, before we get yours, Johnny, what do you think about the Maguire situation? A lot's been made about him having to come in just because England supposedly need him, but like what Jamie said there, Tyrone Mings hasn't put a foot wrong so far. Why pull him out of the team if he's done so well?
It's going quiet.
It doesn't deserve to be. If you're a footballer and you've played well, which he has, and you haven't conceded a goal, I wouldn't drop him.
Okay, so you've actually seen the fault there. I thought I was going to have problems recreating that fault, so I'm glad it's come back and being a little bit more persistent. Now, I was actually wondering what this fault could be. I went ahead and I thought maybe it's something mechanically coming loose, so I went over all the connections on it, I had a good look at all the valve bases, reseated all the valves, went through all the resistors, gave them a bit of a prod and a tap, as well as the capacitors, just looking for loose connections and dry joints, but nothing at all seemed to restore this radio to life. The only thing that seems to bring it back is actually just disconnecting the power. So again, we'll just disconnect HT and reapply it.
He will make mistakes.
Yeah.
Tournament keeper, Pickford's your man. He makes big saves in big moments. And Declan Rice hasn't been great, and Calvin Phillips has probably outperformed him. But just off me going for experience, I would start Declan Rice.
Yeah.
And then I would...
Not much more experience.
No, but...
Okay, and finally it's died again. So that was quite interesting. So I was actually wondering what was going on, and I don't know if you call it my spider sense was tingling, but I had a feeling that this was a problem with the local oscillator giving out. So I wanted to determine if that was the case, if it is a problem with the local oscillator, and I thought I would actually just show you a quick way of trying to determine that. So this is my loop antenna that some of you have seen before, and I've got this loop antenna connected to the signal generator, and we've got the signal generator set to the IF frequency, which in the case of this radio is 465 kilohertz, and hopefully you can hear that. Can you hear the tone? So really what this test is telling me is, it's not telling me what the fault is, but it's telling me what the fault isn't. So there is nothing wrong with the IF strip on the radio, so we know the IF is good. There's nothing wrong with the audio frequency amplifier, we know that's good because we can hear the tone. So that really leaves us things like the front end tuning or the local oscillator. Then we needed to find out which is it. Is it the front end tuning or is it the local oscillator? So I'll show you what I did to try to find that out. I'll tell you what, just to prove that, what we'll do is we'll let you listen to the tone and we'll get the radio signal back.
Can they hear you down at Murphytown Football? No, I think more on the loudspeaker there.
So you can hear the radio signal there and the tone in the background. And the radio signal died away and it's left the tone. Now I'm sorry it's difficult to get the camera into the back of this radio because we've got this frame aerial, and I found this frame aerial to be massively annoying. It's on really short wires, so it means that really when you want to tip the radio up or look into the chassis, you can't support this frame aerial, and if you're not careful you're going to end up ripping all the wires out. So it constantly just gets in the way because the connecting leads on it are just really a bit too short to be useful. So yeah, I'll just move it as far away as I can. So this valve here, well, this valve has got form, hasn't it? Now I bought this valve on eBay, and it was meant to be a tested good valve, and I did try it on my valve tester, and my valve tester did say it was good, but it did have the words weak scribbled into the side of it. So I think that that's a really important clue, that the person who sold me this valve had actually bothered to scrape into the side of that valve the word weak. So I'm wondering if somebody had problems with this frequency changer valve before, because of course it's a frequency changer that's got the that generates the local oscillator. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug the valve back in. And I'm just going to take a length of wire. This is nothing special, it's just a length of wire, and it's connected to the centre of a BNC connector, which means I can actually plug this into my spectrum analyzer. So I'm going to take our wire and I'm just going to form it into a loop like this. Just going to twist it round into a loop, and then I'm going to push it over the valve like that, so that there's a few loops of wire around the valve, and then we'll put the top cap on. So what we're going to do with the spectrum analyzer, we're actually going to use that to actually measure the local oscillator. We'll be able to pick up the local oscillator via this little loop of wire here and feed it into the spectrum analyzer, and we'll be able to see the operation of the local oscillator. We'll be able to see it working. So there we go, we've got our loop of wire around there as best as we can arrange it. And hopefully you can see we're picking up the local oscillator. That's that central peak in the middle of the screen, but you can see that it moves as the local oscillator frequency changes.
Tablet or smartphone, you can. Because Hamilton's just got that better tyre life. Keep his bus out.
We got this. DP UK app. Participating.
Kitchen and more. days of non-stop deals. The 21st, the 22nd of June.
So you can see at the moment with the radio tuning through the stations and it's giving full volume, the local oscillator looks okay. So I'm afraid it's just a matter of waiting now for the fault to occur. So let's just wait and I'm sure it will occur.
Virgin Bet, bring on the game changer. Max 5 players per round. Cash for each goal scored, excludes penalty shootouts. Full terms apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org. The brand new radio station for brand new music.
Absolute Radio Sweat.
Fighters.
It's no longer taking any time off them. So often we see Lewis just be brilliant on the tyres, get the extra little bit of life out of them when you don't think it's possible. Far range is a great example.
But we have also seen him, Silverstone Grand Prix last year, winning the race on a punctured tyre, so he knows how to go to the very limit.
Yeah, and he's got to take it there. He's got to take it.
Oh, I think you can see it there that the local oscillator's starting to fall a little bit. Can you see it's not as high as it was? And the radio's getting quieter. See that? And it's fallen away completely. So we've just used the spectrum analyzer there to confirm that the local oscillator is in fact no good. That's what's failing. Now the question is, why is the local oscillator failing? Now for those of you that don't have a spectrum analyzer, the easy way to actually look for the local oscillator is actually just to use another transistor radio to listen for it. So I'm going to use this Texan radio here. So the first thing you actually need to do is you need to know what station you're listening to. Now I wasn't exactly sure because I've obviously got the dial removed from this radio, so I'm not exactly sure what it's tuned to. Although I know it's on medium wave. Let's just turn the radio up and have a listen.
In front of the Mercedes of Hamilton, and then it looked like it was going to be the Sullivan's race because Hamilton couldn't find a way past. But then it all changed around again with a difference in strategy, with Red Bull going for a new set of...
So it sounds like we're listening to some motor racing. So what you've got to do is you've got to take your other radio and you want to tune in until you can pick up the same station. So I've actually already gone ahead and done that, he said.
He's so much quicker. He's within a second now, 6/10 through the final sector. He's going to have DRS across the line, but there's no overtaking really into turn one. It's not possible into the far chicane.
So for this radio, this is saying it's 909 kilohertz. So what you want to do now is we need to retune this radio to listen to the local oscillator. Well, the local oscillator, the frequency of it is going to be, because this radio has an intermediate frequency of 465 kilohertz, the actual local oscillator frequency is going to be 909 kilohertz, which is what the radio is tuned to, plus 465 kilohertz, which amounts to about, let me just check that because I did work it out earlier, it's 1365, so 1.3 meg. So let's turn the volume up.
Yeah, for a new set of time.
Okay, the radio's gone quiet there. Can you hear that? It's gone quiet because it's actually picking up a transmission. So just to prove that, I'm just going to rock the tuning on this radio and you'll hear the local oscillator, you'll hear this radio start to go noisy again. So with the aid of the spectrum analyzer and just using another transistor radio, we've definitely pinpointed the fault here to the local oscillator part of the circuit. Now of course I don't actually at this point know what's going wrong with the local oscillator, but interestingly enough the fault does have another component to it. So at the moment my voltage is set a little bit high here. It's actually set at just under 100 volts. Of course the supply voltage to the radio should actually be around 90 volts, but I wouldn't have thought 100 volts would be a problem. Probably a set of brand new batteries would be closer to 100 than 90 anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the voltage down a bit. And when we actually reduce the voltage to 80 volts, the radio starts working again. And now I've turned the voltage back up to 100 or closer to 100, it's faded out again. So our frequency changer valve here is V1, and of course that contains our local oscillator in one of the sections of it. Now you can see that we've actually got two oscillator coils here. We've got an oscillator coil for medium wave and also one for long wave. And both those coils have got various capacitors and variable capacitors and other widgets in them, but it would appear that because the fault appears with the local oscillator when we switch to both medium wave or long wave, I'm kind of discounting a problem with any one particular component in either the long wave section or the medium wave section. I think that the fault is outside of here because these are actually switched in separately by switch S5 or S switch. So what I'm looking for is components which are common to a fault on medium wave and long wave, because the fault does occur on both medium wave and long wave. Now the first thing that strikes me, we've got this would you call that a grid stopper resistor? I'm never sure what the difference is between a grid stopper and a grid leak. But we've got this resistor here, R3. So R3 is common to long wave and medium wave. Now I've checked the value of R3 and that seems pretty much bang on. So we don't seem to have a problem with that. The other thing which is common to long wave and medium wave is this capacitor C5. Now I did wonder if this C5 could be going leaky, because if this capacitor does go leaky, I think it could cause problems. But having a look at it, it's actually not really got any voltage across it. It's got nothing, it's got no high voltage component to it. So I don't actually think that it's going to be a problem with C5. So I'm not totally discounting it, but I don't think it's a problem with C5. Now of course we've got the tuned anode load here of C3 and L7. I suppose it could be a problem with that, but I'm kind of thinking not. So I'm going to plumb for it's a problem with this valve V1. I actually think it's a frequency changer valve, and that coupled with the fact that somebody had written the word weak onto it, I think that that's probably the favourite. So I'm afraid that's probably as far as I can diagnose it for now. So I think the thing to do now is, before we go poking around any deeper, we've got to look for the obvious thing, in that we've just got a bad frequency changer valve. So I need to go ahead and replace that DK32 valve. Now luckily my friend Paul Cody's, aka Cody's, he's got one of these frequency changer valves, and he said he's going to put me one in the post so we can give that a try before we muck around any further. And to finish off with, once again, sorry about the technical problems on the live stream. Thanks for all of you that you are all bearing with it, and when the stream dropped out you all jumped on the next stream that I had to create. Now unfortunately my internet connection's just not very good, because I do live out in the country and occasionally it just drops out, as it was doing on Saturday. So thanks to everybody who bore with me with that, and thanks for swapping streams when I had to create new ones. So I think that's all we can do today. That'll do. Until next time, thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon. Until then, bye bye for now. Bye.